Everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to video 3. We're going to be doing another book by Chris Wraight. We're going to be doing The Carrion Throne. My god, that took a second to come to me. I'm literally looking at the script and it still took a second. Anyways, so to get the housekeeping out of the way, again, written by Chris Wraight, published in 2017. It's on Audible. And it was also on Audible. It was written by John Banks, and the total runtime is a bit over 10 hours. So it's a chonky boy, but you could always increase the playback speed and shorten it up. But why would you want to do that? Actually, it's John Banks. For some reason, for me, when I listen to him, it is slow. So I always speed it up to 1.2 just to kind of get it to speed up a little bit. Not because I want the book to be over with, but the literal playback is just are you taking breaks between words? I'm confused. But anyways, review time. Okay, and also for those who are new to the channel, because this channel is brand new, so if you say you're old to the channel, I'm going to be really confused because I just started it a little bit ago. And these are the first 5 videos, and I'm putting all of them up at the same time. Sorry, I'm talking super fast. But the way these videos go is I'll have the review, and then I'll split that into a character analysis section, and then I'll split off again into the summary. And that's if you hop off the video after the summary, you'll be fine. You've gotten the bulk of kind of what this video's goal is. I know it's off-putting because the first bit of this is probably going to be only 10 minutes if you're wanting just to talk about the book specifically. The whole video will kind of address the book, but the review, the character analysis, and the summary specifically will be about the book, and it'll be whether this book is good or not, who's in the book, are there any reprising characters from other books, or who are the characters in this book and what are they doing, all that jazz. And then the summary is going to be as non-spoiler as I can get what this book is kind of about. And in the cases of books that are mysteries or have a plot twist or something like that, then the summary is going to be kind of how this book gets started. So the summary is more likely just going to be a tease than an actual legit summary by definition, but I'm calling it a summary no matter what. So if you're confused, I guess I explained it to you. Yay. Then there's going to be several other sections, who's this book for? So, if you're an action fan, I'm going to straight up tell you, if this book is, gonna be good for you or not. Because if you're an action fan and then you read, Warhammer horror, you're going to be I am bored. Where is the fight? And it's just, a thriller. So, yeah, that's what, who is this book for kind of is meant for, Because even if the story is masterfully written, but if it's a romance or something, not that Warhammer would ever be a Warhammer with a romance, but yeah. Anyways, the next part's going to be how much lore does this book offer. So if you're a lore bunny like me, who just, really kind of chases after, I mean, I read every book at this point. I've sunk down the rabbit hole way too far, so I'm a bad example. But if you're only reading books because of the lore it offers and you just want to know more about the setting, there are books that are good for that. And then there's books that I call Warhammer ASMR, which is all action, no substance. And that's where that's what the section how much lore does this book offer kind of stand in for. And then the last section is this book a standalone book? And kind of caveat off that is how much homework do you have to do, or how much previous understanding of the setting do you need before reading this book? Because there's some books that you can read and you're oh, okay, I get it. I don't even need any other understanding. You could read Brutal Cunning and just be this is awesome, and just be brand new to this whole thing. Or you could read Infinite Divine is a super good introductory book, but anyway, I need to make this part way more concise because this is technically still the intro. In any case, the last bit is going to be my expanded thoughts section. And truly, the expanded thoughts section is me rambling into the void, but with title cues. They are going to be sort of related to the book. but it's mostly just like what I found interesting inside of the book that I want to talk about specifically. So yeah, anyway, after 5 whole minutes of introing, if you're still here, appreciate it. If you stick for the entire video, appreciate it even more. Yeah, anyway, with that out of the way, let's do it. Review time. Welcome back to Terra. I thought we wouldn't be seeing very much of Terra, but then I started doing the Vaults of Terra series, and lo and behold, guess what? We're still on Terra, so yay! This time around, that was sarcastic as hell. Oh my god. It's not supposed to be sarcasm. Terra's fun, not literally. But anyway, so this time around, things are way more somber and slow. A good chunk of the beginning devotes itself to introducing characters. So it's the first book. So a lot of this is introduction to the setting, to the characters, and it's really basking in the setting of 40K, which is kind of Chris Wraight's style, is to really kind of enjoy the setting, really just kind of let it simmer, let it steep, and then just kind of sip at it. So there's a lot of just like immersion going on here. And there's a character focus in this that like a lot of 40K books in general just don't get around to, which is understandable totally, since 40K is like more of a grand setting. So there's whole planets and sectors or even races that are pretty much consistently up on the chopping block in any given book. And even if I'm like misreading the situation here, and the better way to say it is that the story isn't so much character focused as it is just like way smaller in scope. It focuses a lot more on the aspects of like life on Terra, so which is to say like the day to day, and it's more street level view of things. But at the end of the day, the Inquisition is like the main POV of this story. So there's going to be stakes to match. And it's not like, but the Inquisition is here and it's written by like a brand new author. It's like, the Inquisition is here and it's written by like a competent author. So there's actual real reasons for them to be here, instead of just being like, I needed a hook, so the Inquisition's here, guys. But yeah, so personally, for me, what helped to like really, really enjoy this story, to like get everything I wanted out of it, was to get on board with like the slow burn, cards close to the chest nature of the story. Because this book specifically, there's 3 of them that makes up the Vaults of Terra series, right? And this one specifically is like really not expressive. It just like Chris Wraight puts a lot of the onus on you to keep the facts in order in your own head. Like in the later books, it's not really like that. There's a lot more exposition scenes and like, okay, let's catch you up. What happened in the last chapter? But in this book, there's like no hand-holding. It's just like, hey, do you remember that scene where he touched that card and like made a face? If you didn't, you're going to be confused. So like, if that's not something you like, but the other books don't have it. So I don't know what happened here between now and like the other book, but this book, it does that. So, I mean, if you don't like being your hand held, that's great. You're going to love it. The payoff at the end of the book is amazing. All 3 of these books have phenomenal payoffs. And having read all 3, I will say, because I don't usually give like a legit arbitrary ranking of like out of 10. So, but the best I'll do in this one is the second book is the best, at least for me, personally. This whole video is personal opinion, but like everything's subjective, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, for me, the second was the best. And then this book is like the second best. And then the third book is third best. So if you're looking for like should you read this or not from me specifically, I say like it's worth your time. It is. It is good. Stick around for like the actual summary, because I promise I'm getting to like what the book's actually about. It's just like, this is supposed to be the review, which is like my thoughts on the actual book itself. I think it's a good book. It's well written. Great mystery elements, great characters, most of them. But speaking of characters, character analysis. So there's a lot of characters that I won't be doing like a super comprehensive deep dive. Honestly, most of them. And even the ones that I do go in on, it's not going to be like super crazy. It almost never will be, since these videos are supposed to be like semi-brief. At least the summary and review part. I know that like all of my videos so far have been like over 40 minutes. But like the summary and review parts are supposed to be like in that sweet 15 to 20-ish zone. So yeah, so some of the characters are more important than others, as I was saying before, which is putting it super mildly in this book's case, since the important ones get like super, super, super fleshed out, and then the other ones are just like borderline not even relevant. So it's a good thing that they're on Terra. But it's also a really good thing that the ones that aren't really serving much of a plot only show up here and there. And I'll defend this by saying, again, that like they're on Terra. It's an ecumenopolis, so I expect there to be a lot of name drops and dealings with people that we'll see like maybe once and never again, as a representation of just how teeming and like full of humanity this planet actually is, because like it is. It's Terra. It's the cradle of humanity. It's like the most populated human planet like in the Imperium. And not like outside of Terra, there's still the orbital docks and like the orbital places and fortresses that, so there's just so many people here that I did expect a lot of names and a lot of characters just like not really even matter. But anyways, so that is a thing, but I'm also talking about characters that are like set up to be a little bit more and then just like never fulfilling that setup. So it's odd, but totally forgivable, seeing as this book has to weave a compelling mystery while at the same time establishing all the characters from scratch, since it's the start of like a 3-part series. So what I'm trying to get at is, with so much to do, some of the characters do end up falling flat. So with that being said, who are our characters? Centrally, we have Crowell. I listened to it on Audible. I don't have like the actual book. So, and I feel like if I had the book, I would still mispronounce it because names in Warhammer are just insane. But anyways, yeah, so Crowell, who is experienced, he's going to be your like veteran eyes into the goings on, especially for Terra, because he's been posted there for like well over 100 years. And he himself is like old, really old. He's like over 200. I think he's 207, but I would have to like go back and really actually find the quote because it's the beginning of the book, and that was 2 books ago. Anyways, and he's as cynical as you expect. He's disillusioned to the institutions that comprise the Imperium and seemingly faithful only to like the actual Emperor, not to the Imperium, if that makes any sense. His interrogator is Luce Spinoza, and she's brand new. He requested her. She's an Amalathian Puritan interrogator. If you've read the first Eisenhorn book, you know what an Amalathian is. If you've watched Luton's Inquisition videos, you know what an Amalathian is. And if you haven't, I don't know what to tell you. They're usually young. And they're usually like fresh into the Inquisition, unless their mentor was like not an Amalathian, then they, you know. But most often you find Amalathians as like Puritans and also young, very young. Similar to the role she kind of takes is she is the fresh eyes. So it's kind of like walking into someone else's house and then smelling what they've gotten used to and then telling them about the smell and then them being like, what? Like she's that character. So she's taken aback like routinely at how much debasement there is on capital H, his world, because it's, you know, it's home to the Emperor. So to her, Terra is a holy place, and to see people regularly blaspheme, it really kind of like rocks her worldview, because she is just like so staunchly inside of like the Emperor's amazing, blah blah blah. Like I am his servant, everybody else is. We are the Emperor, and he is us. Like she's there. So those that are closest to capital H him should not be so easily swayed into the dark. And honestly, she does end up growing on you as the story progresses, but she is kind of supposed to be unlikable. That's the way she's written. Even Crowell's kind of just like, oh, bruh, like, you're a lot. So like if you do find yourself being like, oh my god, that's the purpose. Like that's why. Filling out the rest of the roster are stormtroopers, which are awesome because generally you don't really see stormtroopers get fleshed out. So it's super novel to me. And usually they're relegated to like no-name roles and 40K books, and they're just used as like punchier and more tactical ways for the writer to establish a threat to be like more spooky than usual. So it's like, oh, like this is like a worse rebellion. So there's Tempestus Scions. It's like, and then they get killed like just as easily as Militarum troops. So it's just like, did we really need to name drop this? But anyway, so it's really great to see behind the curtain on like how they operate within the Inquisitors like base. Revis and Hegane are the two lead stormtroopers. Revis is like the standard, competent, hardened soldier, career soldier. I mean, it's a misnomer to say career or not because like they're stormtroopers. Like there isn't really a leave for them, but anyway, that's kind of his archetype. And then Hegane is like the more open, non-disgruntled soldier. I wouldn't go as far as to say like quippy and like jovial and stuff, but he's just like not bitter. They definitely add flavor to the fortress that they reside in. And the fortress's name is Corvain. And they'll be seen a lot throughout the book. Other Inquisitors are here. Their names are Rassilo, Quantrain, and Phalius, and I don't want to get into them too far because the book doesn't, but I also don't really want to spoil the entire book. As for the random characters, their names are Yulia Hook and Yusika. And my god, they just get introduced, and they have so much potential. So Hook, the Archivist, has a long history with Crowl, right? Like she's set up as like, oh, I've known Crowl for so long. I was like, it's implied several times that she was like there since the beginning, blah, blah, blah. And she's like super messed up and like hooked up to cables and like, you know, sort of insane, but not really. And I thought like, oh, wow, this character is going to do a lot for us to like flash back in time and like flesh out his history. And each conversation with her is just going to like kind of unpuzzle, or I guess fill in the puzzle that is Crowl, and then it just like never happened. So like, I don't know. I was disappointed. We do get it, but just way less than I would have liked to see. And then there's also a section with Yusika, who is a servant. And Spinoza says something in the vein of, the servants of Corvain must have their own intrigues and web of social games that are just as complicated as those at higher echelons of Imperial service. And that got me like, I don't know why, but it got me just like so interested. And I was like, am I about to get thrown into like a day in the life of an Imperial servant? Like, Warhammer's not really about that. It has power armor super soldiers. So like, why would we care about a servant when bolters can go boom? But like, honestly though, and I've said this before, but like action sequences don't hit like they used to. I guess I'm not 16 anymore, so it's just like, like, why watch Chainsaw go burr when I could see a character develop like Constantine Valdor or something like that? But I guess I'm just getting old, so I'd very much love to see a servant or serf arc that was really well written. But that's not what happened. So, you know, if there is a gripe, I'll say that a lot of the characters in this are like half there. Some of them are there, but like a lot of them are like, you're almost there, but you're not quite there. So what you're left with basically is like the mystery, the underpinning mystery that this book is like built around, that really drives this story forward, this narrative forward. And with that, the summary, officially 19 minutes in. I need to work on my time. So this will be the third book of Chris Wraight that I'll have a video about, and the third book and the third mystery. So I'm really sensing a trend, and it's certainly not like a bad thing in his case, because he really kind of like makes mysteries tick. So that being said, it does make writing a summary kind of trash, because I can't just be like, hey guys, this is kind of what the book is about, without being like, yes, I've ruined the mystery for you. So yeah, I don't want to be misleading, but I also don't want to spoil anything. So yeah, I'll talk about what I can, but it's not going to be like super comprehensive as far as summaries go. This story is set exclusively on Terra, with minor mentions of like other planets, and not even like important key jangly planets, like legit just like planets that you're just like, I've never heard of Astranta, so why are we talking about it? But yeah, like there's going to be a lot of just random planets. Don't worry about it if you've never heard of them. I've never heard of them. We're good. But it does make a good what this book does a phenomenal job at is making Terra like the overly complex and dominating place that it is. And you'll wonder why authors don't put like a lot more effort into fleshing out the planets that their books are based out of. So most definitely one of the darkest explorations of Terra that you'll read, for sure. And I'm sure that like there's other planets that are darker and like other themes and jazz, but you know, I haven't gotten there yet because this is only video number 3, and I'm kind of going through all of my catalog first before doing that. But so far as this book, it sets like the bar for showing what day-to-day is like on the ancestral homeworld of like the far-flung future humanity. So as I wasn't saying, and I'm going to do this a little bit differently, I'm going to do this like a first-person POV, and this is from like think you're Spinoza. All right, so your new posting is with an Inquisitor named Crowell of the Ordo Xenos on Terra via his specific request from the Lord Inquisitor himself and facilitated by another Inquisitor, Lord Rassalo, also of the Ordo Xenos. The old Inquisitor you served with was Tur, and he was killed in glorious combat with the enemy. Now full of conviction in your rock-steady beliefs in the ideals of the Imperial cult, and armored and mastercrafted power armor made on Ophelia 7, and gifted a Crozius Arcanum from your service with the Imperial Fists, where you made such a good impression, the Crozius was their departing gift to you. Now, Terra is your new posting, where everything is a lie and everyone is wearing a mask as they try and work to see their particular agenda succeed. Meanwhile, the Imperial citizens that live on Terra exist in such a state of fear and relentless work that they will sell out their own mother for a nicer Hab unit. Among all the detritus and half-truths or outright lies that make up Terra, a false angel and his following that call themselves the Angel's Tears are stacking bodies in the underhives and professing a new life for a better Imperium. And that's pretty much it. That covers what the book is. And trust me when I say that, as with most of Chris Wraight stuff, there's a twist. And what you think you know is not true unless you've read like dummy amounts of Warhammer and you kind of start picking up on what certain signposting. But yeah, with that, the review, the character analysis, and the summary is over. If you want to hop off, you totally can. Thanks for watching. If you stick with me for the rest of the video, appreciate you. So who's this book for? This book's for more of like the patient and like eagle-eyed reader, which is a shame for those that like want constant action but are still thirsty for lore, because unfortunately for you, this book is in the homework category, or at least if you can't stomach like a slow story, then it's in that place where you should find your favorite lore tuber who like covers 40k narrative arcs. Sandman is probably like a solid choice. He does pretty good job of like covering specific narratives of books. He doesn't like cover the whole book, but he'll like pick the meat of a book and just be like, all right, we're discussing this today, guys. This is the topic. But yeah, so this book introduces a pretty important narrative arc, and to kind of put that home, this book is on a list, I guess, that was made pretty recently of like all the books you should read if you're trying to catch up on like the most current what's going on in like the 40k setting. So yeah, this book does introduce you to like some important stuff. If you like the setting, the mysteries, and getting much more of like a mundane view of the setting, then this book is for you. Is it a standalone book? How much homework or previous understanding do you want or need before reading this? And like, does it end satisfyingly? Is there a cliffhanger as an ending? And like, what threads get tied up and like what gets left in the ether? So if there's like a ton of plot holes, are there. For the moment, I would say this is a standalone book, since it's like the start of the series, but also because like each of these books do kind of end. The end does an ending, the beginning beginnings, and like the middles. So the only loose ends are those that like don't matter enough to actually tie up in the first place, because it's just like like not everything needs to be tied up, even on like a day-to-day basis. And then the lows that are like left loose is to give like the next book something to actually carry on with. So coincidentally, the homework that you should do before reading the next two in the series. So you can read this one. There is no homework for this one. But for the next two in the series is the Guardians of the Throne books that I've already made videos on. They're also written by Chris Wraight. And they were basically written on top of each other, like narratively and like literally. Like if you look at the dates they were published, like they were pretty much published on top of each other. But what you want to do is you want to read this book, and then you want to read The Emperor's Legion, and then you want to read The Hollow Mountain, and then you want to read The Regent's Shadow, and then you want to read The Dark City. That's pretty much, you'll be caught up, and you'll understand why I tell you to do this when you actually read the books, because you're like, oh, why did that happen? And it's like literally you know why it happened because you read the other book. But if you don't want to read those books, you don't have to, because you don't. But and like if you look at it like this, you'll be just as confused as like the characters in those books are, because they don't know what's happening. So like diegetically, you'll be with them. You'll be like, I don't know, dude. Like, why are you looking at me? I'm with y'all. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so like homework, Guardians of the Throne books. And if you don't want to do that, then stick with just the Hollow Mountain, because whatever. But yeah, with that, the expanded thoughts section. The first thing that I would love, that I am absolutely so excited to talk about, it's Sanguinala, because like, all right, anyway, Sanguinala. So what's its history, what's its purpose, what's its importance in the setting, and like how is it celebrated? The main meaning behind it is to commemorate the sacrifice of Sanguinius, the Primarch of the Blood Angels. So the Ministorum is more than willing to use depictions of the angel, because he is, you know, he's got angel wings, and he's the angel, sacrificing himself to defend the Emperor from the archdemon Horus. I mean, because like literally the Ministorum don't tell people that there were 18 Primarchs and that 9 of them turned and blah blah blah. They literally are like, so there are 9 angels to fight the 9 demons, and the Emperor created 9 to fight the other 9, etc. So like the Ministorum doesn't really, it hides the fact that there were 18. The Imperium doesn't want to tell people that there were traitors. So yeah, so the fact that he has wings is like sells what the Ministerium preaches super well. And as for how is it celebrated, the Imperium, like across the board, it's all different. The fandom likes to refer to it as like Warhammer's version of Christmas, but I think that's a little bit misleading, because that implies that like everyone celebrates it the same way, or that everyone kind of thinks of it the same way. But in the aspect that it's like a widely known and celebrated holiday, then sure, like that fits well enough, because like everyone knows that Christmas is a thing, even if they don't celebrate it for the same reasons or in the same way. In practice, though, Sanguinala itself has a singular meaning. In the setting, everyone knows it's about Sanguinius, but they celebrate it in many different ways, planet by planet. So it's also dependent on like what sect of the Imperial Church is knocking around. And on Terra specifically, which should be the Emperor deified, but I'm not 100% sure, so don't take me on my word. I would go research that yourself. On Terra, the celebration is a massive procession made up of like hundreds of thousands of pilgrims, and each pilgrim takes, no joke, it takes them like a lifetime to get a permit to like get on to Terra. If like, it's crazy, like people die trying to get their permit as a pilgrim. But yeah, the end goal for them is to see the Eternity Gate, and then once they see the Eternity Gate and they feel like the Emperor's presence and they get all jazzed up, they can go back to whatever planet they came from, and they're literally made like a saint. At least that's like what it says in the book. I don't think that they're like straight up made a saint, because that's, maybe it means something different for me since I've read so many of the books, but like I think they're just highly thought of, and maybe they'll like be written into some scrolls, or the Ministorum will like give them a special rank or something like that. I just don't think they go as far as to be like, you're a saint, because that just seems a bit like extra. Anyways, so the Eternity Gate, it ends at the Eternity Gate, which is probably the most like famous entrance into the Emperor's palace. The palace itself, though, is like a continent large, so don't get it twisted that it's like legit like the only entrance. Also, if you ask like a custodes, the Emperor's palace is like the whole Imperium. So, you know, I guess it depends on like who you ask, how much you want to deal in like semantics. But yeah, so the next one is the downtrodden nature of life in the Imperium, and specifically how it makes the job of the Inquisition harder, and also more times than not exacerbates the problem the Imperium has with chaos and like uprisings in general. So life in the Imperium varies drastically from like world to world, and generally I would say that it's oligarchical in nature, but you do see examples of democratic worlds and like straight up tyrannic worlds led by tyrants, not like, you know, dinosaurs. There's examples of like a lot of different governmental systems, but mostly I would say it's oligarchical. By and large, though, the baseline lifestyle itself for like the imperial citizen ranges from like actively hostile to them existing, which like are your hive worlds and agri worlds, or like penal worlds, with the upper average range to like monotonous, or like at least tolerable, which are probably your better managed like administratum and like fortress worlds. Oddly enough, also probably your feudal worlds too, because they're low tech, but they're also like not wildly oppressive. So you don't, and like the Ministorum is there, and they are like dogmatic, and they'll burn you for blaspheming, just like any other worlds. But like, I don't know, like when I read about feudal worlds, it seems kind of chiller than like a hive world. And also, yeah, I added this. Don't at me with like a forge world, because like I didn't forget to mention those, but I would hardly lump those in with like an average, even if you could try and like label them as an imperial world instead of Mechanicus. And I did lead with saying this is the downtrodden life of the Imperium, not the Mechanicus. Like obviously, if you're a tech thrall on the Mechanicus Forge world, you'll like absolutely just like want to die, right? And if you read, I think I bring up Brutal Cunnin a lot, but there's a scene where a tech thrall is being like threatened by a chaos iron warrior, and the tech thrall is just like, you can tell, like he doesn't talk, but he just doesn't care. The chaos boy is like, I'll kill you, and the guy's just like, his eyes are just completely dead, and he's just like, like who cares at this point? Like I'm a tech thrall, what's there to live for? So yeah, on a Forge world, they don't really stalk standard humans. That's generally actually illegal unless you're like an Inquisitor, and even then they're like, get off our world, what are you doing? Yeah, mostly it's just tech thralls, servitors, and adepts of the cult. Obviously like princeps of like, and knights. I forgot the term for the people that can sit in knights and like command them, but yeah, those guys are like allowed on there. Maybe if you're like a very special rogue trader, but yeah, by and large, living on a Forge world, if you're a standard human, that would blow, but that's like way past the average. That's like in an outlier of like, oh god, like what, RIP you. So there's a difference between taking the Emperor's, I'm getting ahead. The reason I bring this up is to say that if an Inquisitor doesn't learn to like prioritize the basic lies that come about from like fear and jealousy, from the really dangerous ideological lies, then they do end up like burning out super early, because then they're just like launching these investigations on people that are just like saying yo mama jokes essentially, and then like they have to develop the maturity and like the separation and the compartmentalization to know the difference between taking the Emperor's name in vain and like, because it's like frustration and like I've worked 16-hour shifts and I'm getting paid nothing and like all my kids just died, and like actively forming that resistance to that. Like, because when Spinoza first shows up to Terra, she's like way too concerned with like the everyday heresies. So like she passed by somebody in the street, or no, there's a part where she comes out of making a prayer right from a temple, and she's just like had a long day, and then she sees like a defaced statue, and the defaced statue by itself just like pisses her off, and then nobody, like she tries to like get other people's attention, like, hey, help me clean this up, and then nobody responds. Everyone's just kind of like, like who cares, I need to get to work, or like I just got off of like a 1 billion-hour shift, I need to go sleep, and like ignore her. And then she just like, that makes her even more angry. So like that's who Spinoza is, and she's still kind of learning how to let those everyday things kind of go, so that she can like understand the bigger picture and also pick up on like the bigger stuff that Inquisitors are meant to be seeing. Because at the end of the day, like arbitrators, enforcers, and like the Ministorum are there for like the minor heresies, and then Inquisition is there to like pick up on like the world-ending threat that is like a chaos cult or a gene stealer cult or a different Inquisitor kind of going off the deep end. So yeah, like, and it's not lost on Crowell specifically that a better quality of life on average would actually make the Inquisition's job of finding real chaos activity like way more easy. So there's actually passages in this book, but there's also a short story called The Interrogation of Salvor Lomentov that like touches on this subject. By the end of this book, you'll actually understand like, oh, and like probably want to read that book because it directly involves one of the people in this book, and you'll be like, oh, I'd actually want to sit in on this interrogation, because it really touches base on Crowell's values. It kind of opens him up as a character, but it also kind of establishes a very surprisingly human view on Crowell's part of what the Imperium is and how he feels about the Imperium. It's great. So highly recommend. Also, it's not even that long. I'm pretty sure it's like 20 or 30-ish minutes long. So it's, if you've got an Audible credit, it's worth. And if there's like a sale, then it's worth. But if not, I don't know, take my word for it, I guess. But anyways, so moving on. The Visit to the Eternity Gate. So Crowell eventually gets taken to the Eternity Gate. And there's a psychic aura that Crowell feels eventually. Like the closer he gets to like the palace proper, he's like, oh my god, what is this oppressive aura? Like, holy crap, this is a lot. How do you stand this? So my question is, has it always been that way? And what effect does that psychic kind of aura that the Emperor casts have on the people of Terra? So in the Guardians of the Throne like books, no, this is the Vaults of Terra series. My god. But yeah, in the Vaults of Terra series, there's this idea of like an ineffable presence being felt on the throne world itself. And it's also actually, it is talked about in the Guardians of the Throne books as well. Like characters that'll leave the planet are like, oh my god, I'm missing something. Like Alea in the last books, she says this legit, like in the Regent's Shadow books, she takes a transport up to Luna because she's doing her next posting, and like the moment she leaves the atmosphere of Terra, she's like, oh, what's that? Like, I feel a little bit emptier. And it's nothing major. She describes it as like just a constant feeling in the background, and you only realize it when you leave Terra. So it's nothing huge, but it is there. And then the closer you get to the palace, the more you feel it. So I want to say that it's the Emperor's psychic presence, and it's just like the raw energy too. Like it's not like the benevolent outreach he's doing to like impart some kind of comfort either. And after reading the Siege of Terra books, you'll know that the Emperor that's sitting, like the actual organic Emperor that's like sitting on the Golden Throne, is not like the only Emperor anymore. And what I mean by that is, and also disclaimer, this is headcanon from here on until I say it's not headcanon, but the headcanon here is that the second Emperor is the soul that he kind of like, the bit of his soul that he cut off and like launched into the warp. So the Emperor before his fight with Horus, he took a piece of his soul and he like sent it into the warp. Malcador at the time was sitting on the throne, and he was doing his best to kind of like keep the gate closed and like, you know, be the awesome Chad that he is. And he was able to see everything that was going on, because that's kind of like what the Golden Throne does. It like allows you to pretty much see like time and space and like everything in between. And Malcador said that he saw the moment that the Emperor shaved off a part of his soul. And he continued in saying that it was the part of him that held his love, his empathy, and like basically the majority of what made him human, which is kind of important. If you're going to be the master of mankind, you kind of want to be the man emperor of mankind at the same time. So, you know, it turns out that after his fight with Horus, he lost two important things: his luscious locks that made him the man emperor of mankind, but also the part of his soul that made him the man emperor of mankind. So now he like truly is the master of mankind, because he's just so yeah, this piece was injected into the warp, and the most important part that like you should know is that Malcador said that it would grow given time. So it's been 10,000 years. There's been time that it would grow given time into its own entity, like within the warp. So now this is my headcanon part. The aspect of the Emperor that aids the Sororitas in battle, or that just like responds to prayers in general, is the benevolent portion of the Emperor that's like residing in the warp, right? So if you ask for aid or whatever, that portion of him that's in the warp is like, sure, bro, I got you. Like, I love my humans. And then like the portion of the Emperor that's like sitting on the throne is the ultimate like pragmatist, who's like, after dying like over and over and over, because he's a perpetual, and that's what the throne is doing. It's killing him. And then he's a perpetual, so he's coming back. And then since he's alive, he's able to like helm the throne and control it and keep the gate closed, but he's also dying. So it's like a repetitive, like, I have to die to make this thing work, but I'm also not strong enough to keep to like really truly come back. So I keep dying over and over and over again. So like a person who's put into a position like that is going to be like super bitter and just not the same person as he was 10,000 years ago. So I think that Kral is right to say that, like, Call, by the way, Belisarius Call, not Crowl. I know there's a lot of C's right now, but he's right when he says the Emperor who gets off the throne is not the Emperor we knew in the days of the Crusade, and it would be something to be feared. Like, so if the Emperor, like, in the next book just hopped off the throne for some crazy reason, I don't think that Emperor is a guy you'd be like wanting to be in the same room with. So yeah, I think that the storyline with, and again, I think this is not confirmed, the Star Child storyline is confirmed, but I think that the Star Child is going to be huge, because it's like basically the pseudo return of the Emperor. But I think it points to the possibility of like that soul shard I was talking about that exists in the warp manifesting itself into real space again, which gives the chance to basically have it merged with the organic part of the Emperor, and maybe give that organic part of him like the ability to like actually come back, just kind of like that extra oomph. So I guess to cap it off, I think the Star Child that comes back is going to have like the Emperor's heart, and then the Emperor that sits on the throne is the one that is the powerful one. He's the one that everyone's praying to. He's the one that's been absorbing all that psychic might, because like 1,000 psychers a day get sacrificed to him. So I think like all of that accumulated power is residing within that organic portion of him, and then the part that like comes back, that essence, that's his humanity. When that comes back, he's going to be able to actually be like, I am here to help, instead of just being like, burn it all, guys, like y'all suck, stop worshiping me. We had this conversation before. I hate all of you. I've been watching you do garbage for like the last 10,000 years, and you made me sit on that throne. I never had a text-to-speech device. I didn't tell you how much I didn't want to do this. Like, yeah, anyway, so that was all headcanon, and that was a bit of a rant. But anyways, to my earlier point about the general aura that like the Emperor protects, it's projects. I think it's interesting that it's not more comforting, and it is just like unsettling to baseline humans. Like the closer they get, like Crowell literally had like dropped to his knees and was like, I can't keep walking, man. And the custodians just, I mean, they're custodians. They're around him all the time, so they probably get used to it, and they're also superhuman. But like, it's interesting that baseline humans, even ones that are like in the Inquisition actively, react in like a, oh my god, like this is oppressive. How do you even get closer than this? But yeah, so the next part that I want to talk about, and it's actually, no, it's not. I have 6 parts. Interesting. The next part I want to talk about is just like the latent technology and the access to knowledge that like the planet of Terra still possesses. So there's a pretty large and consistent theme throughout 40K, just like the books in general and the setting, of like lost technology in general, just like lost tech. It's like STZs are out there somewhere, and like the Mechanicus constantly look for lost knowledge because it's like their whole thing. And like if you read like the first couple books in like the Gaunt's Ghosts, they even find an STC place that like builds robots, and it's like, wow, okay, so there is like lost tech just kind of like sprinkled in and around everywhere. And probably the only 2 races that don't have this built into like the DNA of their race's like story is the Tau and the Tyranids. And like the latter, I hope, is just super obvious because they're just space bugs. They're not exactly known for their like deep wells of knowledge. But as for the Tau, they're just so new to the setting, and they value knowledge in like a way more authentic and like less twisted way than most other races, that they just haven't had a chance to like lose their knowledge. And then also, fun fact, interesting thing to note, that they already did, because I see this every so often, like I can't wait for the Tau to like have an issue with an AI and blah blah blah, but they already have. Just read some of the Tau books. It's a throwaway line. It's super easy to miss. And eventually, when I do cover Tau books, like I'll actually talk about this specifically, and I'll say the quote. But they've already had our issues with artificial intelligences that they've created being too independent and causing problems. Because like if you're new to the setting and you don't know anything about the Tau, they're super technologically advanced and they do use AI. So that's why I bring this up. And to fix that, they have practices of limiting their artificial intelligences. They use with lots of like restrictions on their memory and protocols on their behavior and like base logic. And also, I'm not a computer scientist, so I'm not gonna act like I know if any of this would actually work in real life. I'm pretty sure the authors don't even know because they're not computer scientists either. And I sure doubt that they like hired a consultant to like answer these questions. But like just know that like in lore, the Tau know that AI can kind of like go corrupt and a bit wonky, and they have taken steps. Whether those steps are going to be effective or not, I guess we'll see, but it hasn't failed them yet. So, anyway, I don't think that we'll see like a mini Age of Strife thing go on with them that we saw with humanity in their golden age. And here's the thing, though. When it comes to Terra, there's a whole repository of technology that harkens back all the way to like the humanity's start as a species. And this is the same in like some other worlds. I mean, I know on Necromunda, there's like a legit STC that's just like chilling. So just in the palace alone on Terra, between the custodies, like what they have in their vaults or archives, and then the far less frequented like sublevels, there's tons of like potential for learning, relearning, and like redistributing knowledge and technology. So it's always fascinating to see someone like given the opportunity to walk the palace. They're usually with custodies, and they always end up remarking at like how different the Imperium would look if just like a fraction of the technology held within just the palace, we're not even talking about like Terra as a whole, but just the palace was like distributed or even just utilized at all. And I watch a lot of lore tubers talk about Warhammer because I'm just, I love me some Warhammer. They don't touch on this topic, and I just don't see it really discussed like at all. Generally the conversation, if it does like even come close to this specific topic, it's just always on like tech regression and like how the Imperium is like forgetting knowledge, or like, oh, Belisarius, did you hear that he's wanting to like invent again? Yeah, like it just doesn't touch on the fact that like the Imperium actually does have like a lot of technology from like the literal peak of humanity, and it's just like lying around on the Imperium's like doorstep. Like, in fact, one of the Arc Mechanicus ships is like confirmed to be an AI, like a legit AI, like a fully like actual AI, not just like an LLM, but like it is its own AI intelligence, where it's like I am me because I can think. Like, it's extremely powerful, and it's just like so OP that it makes the person who discovered it just completely forget that they even discovered it. And then speaking of like the Age of Strife, there are also Iron Men just meandering around the Imperium, just doing their own thing. So like, it's not like the Imperium doesn't have access to technology, right? Like, even if it forgets, it's still there for them to relearn. So it's not like forever lost. It's just like, it is technically, I guess, because they're not willing to use it, but it is still there. So I'll end this section by saying that you shouldn't take the like forget the hope of progress blurb that you see on the front of books. Like, don't take it literally. It's more of like a vibe check than an actual fact in the lore. Like, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like double speak in Warhammer 40k books that like, yes, I get it. The words on the page said the thing, but there's subtext, and there's also just experiences that you have had in the lore that say like contrary to that fact. Like, invention's not true and you can't do it, but Belisarius Cawl exists and he absolutely does it. And like, there's characters that aren't part of the Imperium that do it. I mean, take Fabius Bile making the new men, or actually experimenting with like cloning and like making Primarchs and stuff like that. Like, progress happens, just not in the same way and not what you'd expect, I guess. So yeah, don't take everything you read in this to be literal, and always keep your eye out for those contrary things. The next one is about the Inquisition, and it's fanatical and Puritan ideals. It's most often portrayed by Inquisitors choosing to use like chaos as a goal to fight chaos further, like the usual like fight fire with fire scenario. So there's different Ordos though, so there's different ways you can take this. And then so Ordo Hereticus is probably going to deal with, and Malleus, like the Hereticus and Malleus are probably going to deal with like the Puritan radical scenario in like the traditional sense, which is like, hey man, let's use the Cthulhu magic to fight the Cthulhu creatures. And it's going to be like that, right? But with the Ordo Xenos, they deal with aliens, right? So their divide is their version of Puritan and radical is like, hey, so like, bro, there's this tech that can like slow down time, or like there's a blade that can like phase through armor or whatever. Should we use it or not? Right? And that's their version of like Puritan and radical. So it's an interesting angle, and it's usually explored sort of writing about like rogue traders and these Ordo Xenos Inquisitors. And that's pretty much like it. Because what's interesting about rogue traders is that they're allowed, like it's legal, not illegal, for them to actually utilize Xenos technology, since their writ is like, hey, go out into the fringes of space and operate by yourself. And they don't always, pretty much never, actually have access to Imperial tech to like repair their ships. And the Imperium is like, I guess you guys can use Xenos tech to repair your ships or restock. But like, don't get used to it. And also, if you come back, don't keep using it. So, yeah, like, anyways, the last part before we wrap this video out, because I know we're getting to 56 minutes, Inquisitors and their retinues. So there doesn't seem to be any rules like regarding how large of a retinue an Inquisitor can have, right? I've noticed this once I saw it, I keep an eye out. Like every time an Inquisitor gets like brought up, I'm like, how big's your retinue? How big's your retinue? And I've literally never seen a rule like written in stone about like how big or small a retinue can be. So like in Krau's case, he literally has no retinue. Like it's in the book. It's like, oh yeah, he's just by himself. Like he's got stormtroopers and like an archivist and some other stuff, I guess, but they're not like, he works alone pretty much. And if he needs support, he calls in his troops that he has on staff, but like they're not literally his retinue, right? So Spinoza is like his first interrogator, and like one person for his retinue. And then compare Spinoza's newest master with her old one, Tur, who was said to be an inquisitor on crusade, like a crusading inquisitor. It's not literally a title. You can't be like, I am the crusader inquisitor. It's like more like an attribute they have, or just describing the way they move around the galaxy. He has like an enormous retinue, right? He's got like multiple ships. He's got like an army at his beck and call. Yeah, like it's crazy. So same story with like Quantrain, one of the other Inquisitors in this book. So my question, and throw this in the comments below, because I actually, I really want to hear you guys. If anyone knows, if anyone has like a legit, like, oh yeah, I read this and this, or if they have just, I guess, an opinion, I want to hear it. Where is the line? How big of a retinue should an Inquisitor have? Because like, why aren't there mono-dominant Inquisitors acting as like mini war masters of their own, unilaterally commanding pseudo armies around the Imperium? Like, I get that it would probably be corralled like super quick or subdued by like other Inquisitors, or even like the Assassinorum would just be like, nah, that ain't gonna fly, and then like kill them off. But like, why hasn't it never happened ever? Like, I'm sure that like some Inquisitors have gone rogue and tried to do that, but that's like heretical because they've gone rogue and they've been declared as, extremis traitoris. So it's like, why hasn't there been a legal Inquisitor who's been like, hey guys, I need like this Segmento's army, come with me, But yeah, that's how I'll end it. I really appreciate you guys sticking around. I'm super sorry this video went on for like an hour. I'm gonna try and like kind of make it more concise, unless I hear differently, unless I hear you guys being like, nah, keep it up, bro, like these videos are long for a reason. Yeah, anyway, appreciate you guys listening. See you around.